Now we're here. Groups are done. And that was probably some of the best Siege that we've seen. We needed international competition to come back, and for the love of God, I needed it because it's been too long with the drought for this exact kind of stuff. So, hi, I'm Jacob. He's Jesse. This is Invitational Postshow Day 6. Jesse, are you as beat and as frazzled as I am after pulling this long week shift?
Nah, dude, I slept in this morning because Wikipedia told me I could. I also didn't realize we were going live. I was not watching the timer, and then you started talking. I was like, Jacob, you're sounding very professional. Oh, that's why. That makes sense. Yeah, no, it was a fun group stage. I thought it was a really really entertaining couple of days. Time zones weren't amazing, but you know what? We get it in North America 90% of the time, so I'll live waking up at 2 in the morning a couple of times this week.
And speaking of time zones, we also have a guest on the show who has had to slaughter his schedule in a completely different fashion to make sure he was able to cast most of the games in the early shifts for the group stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our second guest to the post show, Mr. Guzzcasts. My dude, there he is. 3 a.m. for this motherfucker in Australia. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, all right, man. Thanks for having me on. As you mentioned, time zones are a little bit cooked, to be completely honest. Been going to bed at like fucking 7 o'clock to try and watch some of these games and make sure I'm on top of everything. But yeah, group stage was absolutely banging. Maybe not so much for me being from APAC, but overall, some very exciting results.
I gotta ask kind of right off the bat, because I asked Demo a little bit about how like the experience was for somebody who was in the studio in Paris, obviously going and casting everything, but from a remote cast experience, being in Australia and having to worry about like the delay, the connections, all of that kind of stuff, how is it for you trying to acclimate to this kind of schedule and this workload and everything from all the way over there?
In terms of like the time zones, it's actually really not that bad because at this kind of time I'm up playing games or whatever anyway, so I'm pretty active. Yeah. I guess I just adjusted my schedule so I'm not sort of casting quote unquote at the end of my day when I'm pretty tired. Being at home, of course, it's pretty tricky. I think the thing for me personally that lifted my personal energy was the fact that this is the first time I've actually casted anything out of APAC. So for me, that's where the excitement sort of came from, I guess. If it had just been another mundane sort of international tournament casting from home, it would have been pretty challenging. But yeah, I think that was okay for me. And overall, a fun experience. Based on what's been served for breakfast in France, I'm kind of happy I'm not there at the moment.
We're going to keep on ripping into them for the dietary restrictions that everyone is hitting. Yeah, for sure. I was curious about how everything was going to get handled because just from a production side of things, for my own sake, I like seeing how they try to make sure that, especially if it be like delay and connections and how everyone hasn't been able to all be in the same place at the exact same time. It's been interesting to see how everyone is supposed to get adjusted to that kind of routine. I'm just really happy you mentioned before we went live that you weren't casting on a 30 FPS feed over VMix because my God, I would have wanted to kill myself.
Yeah, dude, it's pretty rough. Obviously, the feed quality can sometimes be a little bit questionable, and sometimes, of course, when we're tuning in, I'm reading chat every now and again, and people are like, why are these casters 15 seconds behind? It's like, guys, we're like 300 bloody ping here, plus the ping everywhere else through the production is unfortunately pretty bad, but nothing we can do about that. So I promise that my brain lag, it's bad, but it's not quite bad.
No, I mean, hey, if nothing else, you've got Xenox to carry your ass all the way through a couple of broadcasts for whatever reason that might be. So, and by the way, he's in chat. What's up, Xenox? How you doing, buddy?
Oh, is he? I gotta get chat open.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe we can get like the whole contingent in here. What was it, Jesse? Was it a 1 day ago or 2 days ago where Desert said he was strolling around naked in his hotel room listening to the post show or some crazy shit like that?
Yeah, I think that was 2 days ago. If he can come on, but he has to also be strolling around his hotel room naked. That's like he's baited us.
We just
now.
have an audio only feed from cutting in the background.
What do you mean audio only? No. He's gonna be on the stream and he's gonna play it like he played Twitch chat. Okay.
I definitely wish we could do that if we were streaming to like Pornhub and not to YouTube and Twitch, but
the viewers will find us, Jacob. The viewers will
I said
find
the P word. I'm not partnered, but I do wonder if that's about to get me in trouble. I have no idea.
Get fucked,
bring
idiot.
the hot tub out and then you'll be
Joe, seriously. Oh yeah, dude, hot tub streams have been a thing, so I guess I'm probably not in trouble after all.
You're fine.
That's the one thing about casting from home, like you don't need to wear pants because no one's
dude, right? So. Yeah. How often? Like, I think for every NAL playday, I've been in like comfortable like sweatpants, probably in my pajamas from the bottom half down. It's so good. Yeah.
100% socks on. Like, yeah.
So
comfort
wait.
10 out of 10.
You just say comfort levels are on when you've got socks on? Comfort level
Yeah,
increases with socks off. Are you kidding
Really?
me?
Nah, nah.
I kind of have to
No, I don't
agree.
know if that was like
pretty cold here
snakes
at the
around
moment,
my
so.
necks or my feet. Did you just say it's cold there? Don't you live in Australia? I live in Canada, dude. Come on.
Yeah, well, it's not quite Canada levels of cold, but it's cold for us. I can have a quick look. It was, it's like 11 degrees Celsius at the moment, which is, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but
I don't know what that is in
Pretty-
Fahrenheit either. It doesn't
cold.
matter.
Dude, I mean,
51
fine.
Fahrenheit. There you go.
Oh, nah, dude, for Colorado, that's not that bad. That's like 11 Celsius is probably still mostly shorts weather for most people in Denver in the Rocky Mountains. So that's just normal.
11 is like hoodie weather. What are you on about, Jacob?
Well, no,
11's like
I'm saying people in Colorado are crazy enough that they would stroll outside and go jogging in full shorts and t-shirt in 51-degree Fahrenheit weather and probably colder. Probably like 0 degrees Celsius they'd still be doing it here. People here are ridiculous.
I jog in that, but I'm not gonna like wear shorts outside for that. That's still jeans.
That's okay. We had weed before almost any state in the rest of the U.S., and we kind of went insane as a result. But to get things back on track for the sake of SI for today,
What are we
Group
talking
Stage
about,
Day
dude?
6, we're done with Group B. Finally, like the single most contested group, the one that kind of was a sleeper until we got to like Day 2, and then upsets began to roll in, and competition heated up in a way that most people didn't really see coming. Giants beat TSM out of the woodwork. Makers were doing crazy stuff, but we do have standings if we can cut to that, and then we can kind of talk about how everything has shaped up after day number 3. TSM and MIVR sitting on the top of the group at 5-2, with NiP and OXG sitting right behind them. I'm proud of myself because I managed to call the entirety of the upper bracket for all 4 of those teams correctly before the event started. And the only thing that I didn't get was Parabellum and Giants. In my predictions were switched. I didn't think Parabellum were gonna win that many games or any at all and make it out of their group, and instead it was Giants who fell by the wayside, even though they were tied with SSG. SSG obviously won against Giants on Clubhouse on day 2, and that's why they're still alive and Giants aren't.
Yeah, Jacob, you did pretty good in your predictions. I also did pretty good on my predictions. I didn't get NiP in top 4. I put Space Station top 4. But I did get Giants last, and I got everything else correct. So, Jacob, you and I would make a good combo. We should work together one day.
Like, I was supposed to be cursing teams, and instead I just ensured Parabellum actually didn't get eliminated. So I suppose that's the one contribution that I had to this score overall.
Canada thanks you.
Yeah, you better. Chris and probably would have canceled the t-shirt that he's sending me if for some reason I completely lost them out. Guzz, did you have any predictions or implications or ideas for how the group was going to go before the stage began?
Yeah, so I just did basic power rankings for all the 20 teams. I didn't go that deep into group rankings, for example. But I mean, I wasn't far off on a couple of predictions. I mean, I had the Giants right down the bottom, and unfortunately, they're going home. So the APAC bias definitely wasn't showing in my power rankings. I also had Parabellum going home, all thanks to Jesse Jacob. I mean, Jesse Chick, not Jesse
I
Jacob.
told you exactly what I thought about Parabellum. I told you they were going to pop off. I told you they were the most skilled and jacked players in the entire tournament. If you didn't listen to me, that's on you.
Yeah, I had them definitely going home early, but yeah, they showed up in a couple of games. Outside of that, in Group B, honestly, nothing really standing out massively. I guess Makers were always going to be a bit of a dark horse there, and honestly, they probably should have finished in the upper bracket. The way they were playing was pretty nuts overall, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The only thing I was curious about if it was going to happen was whether Makers were able to kind of squeak their way into top 4 because of the performance they had against mostly North American teams. If my scan through Wikipedia checks out, I want to say Makers had 3 wins, and it was against every single NA team with the exception of, who was it? OXG, because they got knocked out 7-0 today in the first game of day 3. So that was the only one that I kind of thought might be able to dark horse their way all the way into the upper bracket, just because, you know, from initial implications as the group stage began, everyone was kind of like, where are they going to fit? Are they going to do really good against LATAM, or will they do good against very structured teams like NA? And inevitably they did. It just didn't really lock out for both of the North American teams that they faced on day 3. So aside from that, that was the only real question mark that I had. And there were so many people in like YouTube comments for this show that were like, oh, you're sleeping on Makers. I'm like, I predicted them to beat SSG. What the hell do you want from me?
I don't know, dude. There's some crazy Makers fans. I don't know if I don't know. They're good. They're a good team. But I think that's kind of like where I had them right in the middle of the pack. That's kind of where they finished. They finished 5th. I think I had them exactly 5th. So yeah, I think Makers they definitely showed up. They played really well. Still a bracket in front of them, and I guess we'll get to that later. But I think they can be proud of how they played for sure.
Yeah, I think the scary thing for them, though, and probably Parabellum as well to some extent, is going into the best of 3 format. We just don't know how deep they're going to be able to go, and we don't really have much to go off because neither team, as far as I know, has competed in best of 3s recently, really, to any high competitive standards. So,
wow, just the qualifier really to get here.
Like they could come into the playoffs and just completely bomb out. They might be able to win their map pick and just get absolutely destroyed in the next 2 maps. So. I don't want to get too excited. I mean, I'm all for some Dark Horse crazy run, but they could also just get knocked out in the first game and we forget about them in a couple of weeks. So,
Well, we'll get to all of those predictions probably a little bit later because there's 8 games that we have for both the upper and the lower bracket that we can look into, plus a couple of eliminations. But then again, we do have 2 days in between this day and when all of that madness kicks off on Wednesday. So Monday and Tuesday, there is that gap. So we get a little bit of a respite. We're not worried about pulling a crazy shift. But those games, I want to say, do start at around the same time as the group stage ones did because we're not...
they do.
Are we still doing A and B stream for playoffs out of curiosity, guys?
Yeah,
okay.
we are.
Yeah.
Sweet.
I'll be on B stream, so see you there. I don't know what games I'm doing yet,
but... I'd be surprised if anyone knew what games they were doing, but we'll figure that out.
Is it just day 1 is A and B? I don't know if you know this, Guzz.
Good question. I think it might be days 1 and 2.
Okay.
I'm working the first 2 days and only the first 2 days, and if I'm correct, it's only remote talent on stream B. So...
Okay.
Like me, Xenox, Jess, Dev, Kix and Tero, Blue Stokes will all be on B stream. If I'm not mistaken, if nothing's changed.
Right.
But yeah, again, I don't know the game allocation as of yet. In terms of when they start, Liquipedia's got it listed as 7 p.m. my time, which is
3 a.m. our time.
3 a.m. for us. Yep.
So, 3 a.m. There you go. It's going to be some long days potentially. I don't know how many they're trying to jam into each stream, but yeah.
My guess would probably be like 4 best of 3s per stream per day. Is probably like a really accurate assessment.
Sense,
yeah. And what we're getting 4 teams knocked out on Wednesday, 4 teams knocked out Thursday. So then by that point there were only 8 teams left in the bracket overall, which means they wouldn't need to worry about 2 streams. So I'm guessing. But it's just kind of like you wouldn't have to justify having that many streams going for that many teams up at the same time. But it is what it is. All right, but before we end up trying to throw our best predictions on for the day, we do have both the A and the B stream from today to go over. Jesse went back and did stream B on his own stream. I did stream A, but the difference here is that it wasn't like a 4 and 5 game split. Both streams ended up having 5 games overall, and for my case, we started with Makers and SSG, which was the one time that I ever picked Makers to to win a game outright, and ultimately they did. This was on Coastline, which for me was... I didn't think it was worth it. Oh, we don't have the bans of the maps all figured out. That's okay. We'll figure that out in a second. But it was Coastline. It went Maker's way. Again, something I wasn't expecting. The overall scoreline was 7-3, but the Coastline pick I was really worried about just because I didn't have any expectation that SSG against a whole bunch of like Italian gunners or like a very structured team would do very well. And the reason I mentioned that is just because Maker's overall success rate seemed like it was best against teams that had like the drone first, use utility to clear utility and then go for picks sort of mentality, whereas Makers kind of fell into the idea that, you know, we can be more aggressive and swing without going through a majority of those steps, especially on attacking rounds, and they did that throughout the entirety of Coastline as it went. Both Rampy and Fultz, most of the people who you would expect to gut on SSG just didn't really seem as though they were kind of up to par. But this was I don't really know why this was the game that I thought Makers were going to win on, because they had OXG that they had to worry about in the game right after, and then MIBR right after that, and they probably could have won either based on their performance through the rest of the tournament. But this is just the one where I said, yeah, I think Space Station probably fall by the wayside, and they did. And it was kind of the beginning of a 3-game SSG skid overall for day 3.
Were you noticing the common trends of Space Station's like failures that we saw in the regular season, particularly like how slow? Because that was like the whole thing, like the NAL, right? Space Station play really, really slow. Do you know if that's if that was an issue that they had in this game as well?
I do think it was a little bit of that, yeah, but it also it came down to SSG's guys simply not being very willing to take fights on a map like Coast. It is already a little bit strange. Like, this is a team that plays strategic, yet they love to go to a frag heavy map, and if your guys who are supposed to be getting kills don't show up, then that ultimately just creates more problems than it fixes. So I do think it was like that, but it was also just because, like, more specifically, Fultz just kind of got slammed before he could even get into gunfights in certain scenarios because Makers had that level of aggression. So that kind of sold it for me. This one wasn't very complex in terms of why Makers won and SSG lost, but yeah, that was kind of what it was overall for me.
I don't really have much to say on Space Station. I didn't get an opportunity, if I'm remembering correctly, to even cast them, unfortunately. Would have loved to, but just the way the game sort of fell. Yeah, and didn't get a chance to watch this game either because I was busy casting. So it was all stream B for me today, unfortunately. So not much to add.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't really think it was that special of a matchup. Ultimately, I was worried about what this might do to Space Station's mentality, like right out of the gate to begin the day. But aside from that, I didn't really have much else to comment on either. So we're kind of speed running through this, it seems like.
That's okay. This next game, I was sleeping. So did you watch it, Guzz?
Yeah. So I was on the desk for this one, Giants MIBR, and yeah, look, bit of a headache to watch. I mean, console at the best of times can be a headache to watch, but Giants were really struggling. They got one round on their defense off the back of a crazy post plant when Luna hit a like a spin blade bloody clash pick, and they managed to defuse the kit because no one from MIBR was on the CEO rappel, which was super duper odd. They had to like quickly try and jump down and get back up there, and they couldn't in time. And then outside of that, on the attack, Giants were honestly pretty woeful. Obviously, there's a couple of key positions on every single consulate attack that are basically you must clear those areas if you're going to be any chance of getting a plant down or finding picks. And basically none of those positions were being cleared on any occasion. Like basement, they'd get it open, none of the plants in R would be disrupted. They'd go for a lobby attack, no one above would be cleared. They'd go for above, and then they would struggle to clear out any of the players that were hunkered down on any of the key locations again. So yeah, not a great result there for the Giants. Obviously, that form ended up continuing on for the rest of the day for them, and probably a reflection of their Stage 1 results this year, and SI as a whole just, yeah, unfortunately quite disconnected, and they need to get back to the drawing board.
We got the graphic fixed, but it was after we were done talking about the matchup.
Hey, we got it. It's okay.
No, we'll get that in a hot second. By the way, we did have a producer switch. It was Ferme on the first few days. It was DJ yesterday, and now it's our friend Jabrak who's handling everything on this end because we've had to pull different producers in for different reasons, and Ferme obviously has to worry about North American Challenger League happening in a second. So if anything is out of line, we'll just make sure that we get it fixed before it goes too far. This was kind of the expected result. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
Not that like APAC and the Latin American teams couldn't mesh well, and ultimately I did think that if APAC teams historically were going to do anything, it was probably going to be against a Latin American playstyle, but we did kind of see that Giants differ from Cloud9 and CAG in a lot of ways, from group to group, opponent to opponent, but MIBR actually ended up proving Jesse's point. Didn't you have somebody saying that like they had no idea why you were picking MIBR to be such a strong team in Group B overall, and all they were looking at was like MIBR's record, and it wasn't very impressive?
I mean, I don't know. I think MIBR are like a team that can be like kind of divisive if you actually like think they're any good or not. I know I get into lots of arguments with Flynn over if this team is good or garbage, and I think MIBR are really good, and I think they proved that in this matchup. I do think MIBR were one of the favorites in this group. I think they proved that by going second place, and yeah, I'm trying to figure out why Giants only showed up to play TSM. Like, they didn't show up a single of this game. Yeah, they got 8-7 versus Makers, but that game was a dumpster fire of a game where both teams did a lot of throwing. So like the only good game I saw from Giants was against TSM. I just want to know why you got to do our NA boys like that. Like, you could have had a good game against like Ninjas in Pajamas. You didn't. You could have a good game against Makers. You didn't. Come on, Giants, give us a bone.
We just got a vendetta against NA.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah. I think Giants, obviously it's difficult to know not being in their camp and whatnot and hearing comms and whatever, but they are definitely a team, and I feel like this is pretty, goes across the board of every region, but particularly APAC. Once they start to fire up and actually find a bit of confidence in the server, they can sort of steamroll that into round wins, whereas you often see just in their body language after they lose a few rounds, honestly, like no one's really talking too much. They kind of drop their heads a little bit. And I guess the scoreline ends up reflecting that at the end. They got rolled in just a lot of games where they were unable to find themselves in the server. That was reflected in that MRBR game and then later on against Oxygen. So again, like I said, something they need to really focus on for the rest of the season, because I don't think they're a team that needs time to acclimatize to one another or whatever the case may be. Like, these guys have been playing together for ages. Like, these are one of the OG squads from APAC, so I don't think they have issues in that regard. Maybe there's been some teething issues in the current meta, but I think it's probably a larger problem.
Wasn't it a well, no, just on the back of his point about how long they've been together for, isn't like Kamikaze and who is it? Kamikaze and Psycho are like one of the longest running duos, and then you have like Lunar Metal Hysterics and Ysera, who have also been together for like a similar amount of time since like 2017 or something like that.
Yeah, like they were at the first SI for APAC. Under was it Cryptic? They were then. I can't remember what they were called back then, but
that rings a bell. Yeah.
Well, I can't remember exactly, but yeah, that was way before my time. I don't think I was even watching Comp Stage back then. So yeah, they've been around for freaking ages.
Yeah, they went to the first SI and they went to last SI and they got last place in last year's SI too. It's back-to-back last places for Giants, which is somebody in my chat pointed that out. Unlucky. Of course, last SI 4 teams got last rather than just 2 teams getting last.
Yeah,
but that's unfortunate.
What are you gonna do? This is the same lineup, by the way, from SI 2020, I think.
Pretty close.
It was after Mentalist came in, and Jordan, I think, has played for both teams. Or am I crazy? I think he did. I want to say it was the same because Gig was also still. He was coach for the team after that point because he left Navi right after Tokoname, which is
same core,
ironically enough when Mentalist left this team too. So I'm trying to make sure that I have like my timelines all lining up.
Yep, but it's exact same 5 players, and. Yeah, Gig was coach.
Yep.
History. I think they had a different coach as well, because they have a guy named History on their Wikipedia page from last year.
Yeah, I think he was was he the one? They had someone different standing behind them. Was it? I can't remember if it was Jordan or History. I can't exactly remember, but yeah, they had some like strange dynamic going on last SI.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but obviously Gig was behind them for this SI. Yeah.
Yep. Well, hopefully he's able to find a way to turn those guys around. And the fact that they were like what, 5th place in APAC South, I want to say, right?
They did worse than that, didn't they?
It's worse than that. I can double check the result real quick.
6th?
Didn't they get last?
No, that had to have been wild card.
They were 6th. Yeah, Order and Wild Card were below them.
I see.
Obviously, Wild Card. Honestly, if they would have been at SI, they probably would have done even worse.
I would say no excuse for Order, but by that same token, I also love bullying Jaden for getting signed to Order and then like retiring for being a player like right after then. I'm just like, man, figure your shit out. All right, if we keep going down the list in this one, we needed to see Oxygen show up in a massive way because they were in risk of getting knocked out themselves. They ended up pulling out a 3-0 streak as the day progressed, and in this one, it was a clubbing. It was 7-0. Makers had absolutely no response. Part of me wonders whether OXG banning Ash in this case was just to make sure that like the comfort pick on Makers was taken out very, very early, and that kind of ended up being what happened. But this was where I was talking about the way that Makers were beating the other NA teams was because of that structure. Droning, utility clear to burn utility, whatever that might be, and then making a push inside. OXG kind of embraced moving really, really fast, whether that was acting on drone intel, having people like clearing so much map control within just like the first couple of seconds. Like within 30 seconds, they had like half of an entire floor already completely clear of utility, of people, and sometimes they were also finding early picks in that time, but it felt like they understood like the urgency with which they needed to move like all the time. And I was honestly really impressed with just the pacing that they had the whole way. And as Makers were trying to find like methods to adjust, that speed kept hitting them in the face because OXG were sometimes hitting like Church Bomb site, for example, because I want to say they attacked for the first half and Makers were defending. When they were hitting Church, they were doing it with like a minute 30 seconds left as opposed to like doing a hatch drop with only 30 seconds remaining. So I thought they were doing like a splendid job as they worked their way in. And it was like Makers didn't have a way to account for OXG being aggressive because they didn't think NA teams would be. But they did fucking amazing on this one.
Yeah, might be exposing a bit of a weakness in Makers for sure. If you just run at them, you just hit them. I mean, like, I haven't noticed anybody ridiculously like this team's gun skill's been like fine, but I haven't noticed them being like a heavy team. I think Aqua's been nuts with some of the shots he's hit, but like Gemini Lalo perhaps, but like most of these players are not known, as far as I'm aware, as being like huge fraggers. So yeah, if Oxygen just decided, hey, let's hit him in the face, and they ran with that, yeah, perhaps it's a strategy. I do think like going into today, Oxygen's circumstances looked way worse than they actually were, right? Like Oxygen were the only team with 1 win. They were at the very bottom, but they had 3 winnable games, like very winnable, and it was 100% in their fate. And they clawed back. They got it all the way to their upper bracket now, which like, yeah, I think that's expected if they win all 3 of these, and they did. And so this was a great start on the day for Oxygen.
Again, obviously, I didn't get to watch this matchup, but it sounds very similar to the Oxygen Parabellum match, which was also a 7-0. I casted that game, and honestly, it was over literally before it began. I don't think I've ever seen someone steamroll an opponent like that much.
That
was crazily dominant. Literally, Oxygen were just running in. They had map control in the first minute of the round and then just absolutely destroyed Parabellum. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous, which is crazy to see them Parabellum bounce back the way they did. But it sounds like Makers sort of felt that force again. And I don't know if Oxygen, again, I haven't covered them much, have been having issues similar to that. Issues opposite to that, I guess, of some of the stronger teams and not being able to gain map control early and then they hurt themselves late round. But yeah, maybe they need to try and bring that aggression against some of the more established teams. I'm not sure.
There was also one other thing from this one. Oh, you go ahead, and then I'll bring this up, and then I'll wrap this game up.
I mean, I just know, like, in that Parabellum game, Parabellum, like, played like garbage. I mean, that was the worst showing I've ever seen from Parabellum. So I don't know if Makers were also playing really bad in this game, or if it was just Oxygen, like, masterclassing it. But yeah, definitely similarities you can draw between those 2 games for sure.
The one thing about this is we've known, and I'm trying to remember, I believe it's Scato on Makers who typically plays within a very like support heavy. He's always on hard breach. He's playing from the back line, which means he's not really ever trying to be like the first, second, maybe even third or fourth person trying to get into a building. He's always waiting like the majority of the time for someone else to find it clear. Jabrock, if we can go back to his stats real quick, if we can pull that sheet up real fast, I didn't think it would be possible to eclipse having like a 0.23 rating overall, but Scato did it with a 0.03.
What?
I know.
Doesn't get much worse than that.
The fact that he got a 14% cost, I think, is legendary. But how do you have a rating that is literally a new record for the lowest you could go?
I mean, 14% cost must have meant that he must have gotten traded 1 round. Is the only thing it could have been.
Yeah.
He got traded 1 round. That's it. 0.03. That's got to be the lowest in SI history.
I don't think that's ever going to be beat. If I'm completely real with you, I don't think anyone will ever get a 0.002 or a 0.001 or straight up nothing. I do not think it is possible.
I've seen 0.00s before, not in SI, obviously.
Right.
So this is crazy. I've never, like, that's so bad.
This looks like a stat sheet. If you took the player names out and the logos, this would look like what would happen if a team like Rogue beat a like a no-name GSA team. Like someone who they had 0 clue like how to even play against a pro squad. Like that's what this game looked like.
Yeah.
It was disastrous. All right. But speaking of Parabellum, we got their first game on the docket. How did that go?
Oh, went pretty good. Taking on MIBR. They got 5 rounds, you know? It could have gone better. But, like, as far as what I was concerned, like, I thought this was going to be a slam. I really didn't think Parabellum were going to show up today. But they played Cafe. They started on defense. They went 3-3 split on defense. They only got 2 attacking rounds. Again, I did kind of miss some of this game because I was kind of waking up. But at the very end of it, I noticed a lot of MIBR's defenses. You know, they were doing a good job, like, rotating around to stop the plants. The objective focus, I thought, was great from MIBR, the way they were able to deny the plant pretty consistently. There were a couple other times where Parabellum just threw in, like, really terrible attacks. There was a bar attack where everybody just, like, dropped Skylight and got slammed. So, yeah, and then, like, the very end, they're, like, their kitchen attacks were, like, really awful because they lost the same push twice in a row. Where it's like they're planting coffee and somebody just walks in the door and shoots the guy coffee, and they have full top control. They can deny it, but that push kills their rounds not once, but in two separate rounds. So that was unfortunate to watch from them. But overall, I mean, I'm impressed that they got 5 rounds against NIBR.
Yeah, I think Jesse's literally hit every point that I've written down here.
Sorry.
There was that. No, you're good. You're good. That Skylight drop failure from Parabellum in a desperate attempt to get around, very questionable to be attempting it in that stage of the match. It definitely put a lot of pressure on them later in the game. So I'm sure they'll probably be regretting that one. And then Kitchen failure to cover that double door really posed some issues for them. On the side of MIBR though, it was a match where the team that made the lesser amount of mistakes won. MIBR didn't do anything fancy. Honestly, it was very standard Cafe, which is the reason at the moment I hate casting Cafe, because for the most part, teams are just doing the same thing over and over. I don't know if Xenox is still in the chat, but every time Cafe comes up in the video, I just sigh because I'm like, I don't want to cast this map. But yeah, MIBR, they just did the job. I think they knew heading into this one that there was no reason for them to do anything crazy because they'd already established themselves pretty nicely in the standings. I guess they just wanted to gain some momentum for the playoffs. I don't think at this point they would have secured their top 4 either, if I'm remembering correctly. So they were fighting for that too.
Yeah, definitely.
So it was an important game, but again, they minimized mistakes, didn't do anything crazy. And if they had have maybe done something more extreme, it probably could have blown out to a bigger margin. I don't think Parabellum would have responded very well to that, but they didn't, and it was closer in the end.
This is just kind of highlighting for me. Once the OXG and Makers game was done, I went back and watched some of this, and the only real bright spot that I noticed is that Eska and Spirits can claw back rounds kind of like single-handedly by themselves if they need to. They are insane when they're locked and loaded. Like they didn't have a good performance in their very first day, and then over the past 2 they definitely like woke up and came into their own. So I've got like nothing against these dudes. Both of them are fantastic, just from a raw mechanical level overall, like playing Sledge, Zoph, Ash, whatever it might end up being. But the rest of the team doesn't need to perform from a stats point of view because Penguin is trying to strat make an IGL. Euphoria just has to flank watch. Neither one of them I think really had that much of an impact here. If either one of them had like a little bit of a better day, then we'd probably see this game at the very least go to OT. But I would call pulling 5 rounds against MIBR probably like one of the top rated or top ranked overall Brazilian teams at this event overall. That's still an accomplishment, even if it didn't result in a game win, if I'm totally honest.
Yeah, 100%.
I think did we go to Cafe for the net? I'm 90% certain we did. Yep. So we had Cafe in 2 back-to-back matchups, and this one slammed. This one was really, really good. This was textbook Cafe, kind of in almost like the opposite way, because it was structured NA team versus a team that I keep on calling like the closest equivalent that we have to a Brazilian team in North America. And this was a career day for OXG, kind of all around. The fact that it went to overtime, I think, was something that could have been avoided, but it was back and forth, one round over and over and over again. And this was like NAL Siege kind of at its peak overall. There was it was probably one of the closest matches we've ever seen, and I mean that with so many other 8-7 games that have happened in this tournament so far. I thought when it came down to the wire, that's where teams were easily able to claw rounds back, and there wasn't many scenarios where if somebody was in a clutch scenario, they didn't win it. So yeah, I other than that, like, this is just one that you could go back and it just has endless VOD review potential overall. I didn't take a whole bunch of notes on it because I did take a shower about halfway through it, but I loved it. It was great.
Yeah, nice to see North America. I think this was the one where we had all 4 NA teams in Group B playing at the same time.
Yeah,
so
at this exact moment,
NA going on at the same time. But yeah, this was one that I kind of had my eye on, especially towards the end there, when we headed into overtime, and Oxygen clutching it out. Space Station, unfortunately, this is the exact same scoreline that they played when they had in the regular season. It was 8-7 Oxygen in the regular season as well. So kind of funny that, history's repeating itself. Space Station had a big problem in the regular season, not closing out games when they went into overtime. And if that continues on into the bracket form, or in the bracket stage, SSG could be in a lot of trouble.
When I look at this result just on face value, it does make me a little bit concerned for Oxygen, just because it's pretty obvious that Space Station aren't that strong at the moment. But again, that's just looking at it on face value. I know you guys would be a lot more confident in saying whether or not Oxygen actually played well or played poorly here. Again, if they matched up closely in NAL, then maybe it's just a bit of a boogie team, I guess, for Oxygen, in the sense that they're not great against them historically. Again, that I don't really have much insight on that, but yeah, sounds like it was a close game. Again, unfortunately, I missed it, but may definitely go back and watch it, particularly if I end up casting these teams in the playoffs for sure.
The thing that I really had a problem with in this one is the one round that I have pulled up on replay was actually on OT match point, and it was a scenario that turned into a 1v3 really quickly, and I figured SSG were probably going to have the advantage. If we can snag the replay up in a second here, Jabrock. The problem with this round is it seems like everything goes OXG's way, and there were a lot of people that were going, oh, they're throwing this, like we have no idea what we're looking at. But if the feed clears up here, 4v3, OXG on defense, we're downstairs. Bosco's going to try to clear out everything around VIP lightning fast, because he already has against Vertical, so Vertical's already out of commission. Kino, he's just hiding, doesn't see Bosco. He'll get swung again, but watch Fox Day if he can. He's playing Valk back by, I want to say, by Freezer's side. And while they go for the plant, look at what SSG tries to do. Rampy straight up pulls off and tries to go for the frag.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the 1v1.
How close was he to sticking it?
He was not quite halfway.
He couldn't have got it. He had to, I think he had to take that 1v1. I don't think there's anything else he could have done. I think it feels really good if you're Fox, because you don't know that you're in the 1v1. It looks like a 1v3. But yeah, that's just a tough situation. Again, Auction coming so close to the wire against Space Station. Good game.
Yeah. I don't know if Caliber's frozen. He looks like he's given.
Yeah, he might have gone to the land of Frozen. So we can move on. I don't know if we have any more to talk about that game. But I think you casted the next one, right? TSM Parabellum.
Yeah. So that was on. I can't remember the map. I've got Wikipedia.
Villa.
That was the first time that we had casted Villa in this tournament, so it was pretty exciting for me, seeing particularly what the NA teams had on offer here. Just looking back at my notes.
I'm back. My internet did a weird fucky wucky again.
Nice.
Welcome back.
Man.
We moved on.
God damn it.
We're talking about Para TSM, which I casted on stream B.
Yeah.
So the early round in this matchup was actually pretty even. Both teams, for the most part, were gaining map control quite freely. There were a lot of soft frames employed by both teams. So TSM and Parabellum both, if they were defending Aviator games, which we called AVG. Apparently, you guys in America don't call it AVG.
No, we definitely call it AVG.
Everyone.
No,
we do. Call it AVG.
Intero said it wasn't AVG in his.
What the fuck?
So,
well, Intero was wrong.
We'll call him out on that one, but yeah, so I felt really self-conscious about that. Anyway, so yeah, AVG defenses, strong extensions over towards bedroom, and then teams were just falling off within like 30 seconds, attacks wasting lots of time. And then when it came down to the nitty-gritty in the late round, Parabellum were just completely outclassed. TSM, they are just on a whole nother level when it comes to late round. Like, you can just tell that they have this sort of aura about them, this synergy, that they're not even having to think about what they're doing. They're just executing it and doing it pretty flawlessly. Just the pressure that TSM were applying as well was just like on another level once again, and Parabellum were faltering. Eska was the top-rated player. I don't know if we want to bring up the ratings yet, but Eska was the top-rated player in the server for that matchup.
Yeah.
But obviously, Parabellum, you can't be relying on individual results to get you over the line, and that wasn't the case for them in the end. I mean, maybe the question I would pose to maybe Jesse or Jacob as well is, like, is Eska a serious shot at actually getting picked up by another team? Or because it feels like for the most part, at least throughout this tournament, he was playing pretty well.
Yeah.
Keen to hear thoughts.
I'd say he has been for a pretty long time, yeah.
There's the meme Escanades, right? And he's known for his crazy frag grenades. So yeah, I think Eska's like known to be one of the best players on this team. And so it's not surprising to me that he's popping off. I don't know who's considering him. I'm not a player, or I'm not a team trying to pick up some Challenge League players. But yeah, you never know who's watching those CL games.
No, Eska had a really good reputation. He was in Canadian division when Altiora was actually like at a PL level, or like a tier 1 division, and then back in CL, I'd say that's definitely continued. I don't remember what his CL stats overall have been, but it's been like him and Spirits are the two that will show up statistics wise most games. And then players like Sonar have their moments, and then Penguin and Euphoria oftentimes don't have to top the scoreboard. But if they do, if they're having a good day, then like everyone's already having a good day by that point. So
yeah. There was I wrote down a big play from Eska. It was in round 8. He got this 1v2 clutch. I just wrote down it was an amazing play. I don't remember it.
Was that the one? I think it was the 1v1 on Achieved, right?
Yeah.
Stat. Yeah.
Want to whip it out?
Yeah.
Eska walks out, wide swings him, and gives him the old left, right, good night. It was a good play.
I do think this game actually reminded me a lot of TSM versus Beast Coast back on the very beginning of when the NAL started. The first game of the NAL, it was on Villa, and I talked with TSM after the game, and they talked about how, a lot of times they were on these like soft roams, as you were mentioning, Guzz, and on attack, like Beast Coast would just walk into them without a drone in front of them, and it would catch them off guard, and they would just get like slammed. Like they would check the corners, and they would destroy him. And it felt like Parabellum were doing the same thing. They would like walk in against the soft roam. They wouldn't have a drone, but they would just like scan the whole room and just like snap to the corner, blow them off the face of the earth. And TSM really were getting caught off guard by that. So that was pretty cool to see, like a bit of a similarity there. But I did think in that second half of TSM's defenses, you saw the play like way more focused on utility. I don't know, like if you remember, they did their second trophy defense and they stacked it up with like, they put Geo in closet with like 1 million ADSs and Surya gates and like magnets, I think. And so they just like stacked utility, and Parabellum like couldn't deal with it at all, which was seemingly the answer that they came up with after they lost to that style of play against Beast Coast.
Yeah, and I mean that was probably. Oh, sorry, Jacob. But
No. I was just about to say I have the clip pulled up, so.
Right.
Oh yeah, let's go to the clip. We can talk about the boring
stuff. Yeah.
After it.
For real. This was more specifically like a 1v1 closer to like the end of the round, but I have it pulled up from like 41 seconds over. So let's see what we got.
This is the final round that Parabellum ever won.
Geo got deleted there.
Yup.
That's pretty unlucky. There were a lot of gunfights that Parabellum won in this matchup that were just TSM getting absolutely deleted off the face of the earth. Like, it was pretty ridiculous. There was one round where like Parabellum hit about 3 like 90-degree snapshot flicks. It was absolutely nutty. But yeah, good work here from Eska.
I was worried about that reaction time, but he still nailed it too.
He downs the kit and then just like books it so far back. Probably in hindsight, not the right call. So he lets the Chief pick it up, and now Chief like can go plant, and he needs to come return a little faster.
Dude.
He needs to come back to site a little bit faster. What?
Oh,
doesn't matter because he still hits the shots.
Chief paid like 3 times too, dude. Man.
Yeah, that was a nice play.
You could say that was an achieved loss, but we'll give it to Eska.
Yeah.
The MPX is also a pretty mean feat because that gun does like one damage per bullet. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah, dude, I had Hot and Cold on my stream yesterday, and we were talking, and he said the MPX was his favorite gun on defense. He would take that over any other gun.
Really? I mean, it's a laser. Like, if you hit shots with it, it can feel really nice. It's just one of those guns that maybe statistically isn't the greatest, but sometimes feels really good. It's like the 416, right? Statistically, even, especially now, it's like dog shit, but it still feels really good. MPX at close range is a laser. Like any long range engagement, like runouts and whatnot, it could be pretty scary, but.
Yeah, the only reason I'm ever complaining about the MPX is just to be a pea shooter because of damage, but come on, that thing is good enough that you should not be concerned about damage.
It's a good excuse. When you lose a one, you just
I was about to say, that's very, very rookie excuse for sure. Also, hello, Dev. Good to see that most of the Australian contingent has decided to show up for the stream. Feels good. It's all because of this, man. It's all because of Guzz. That's the only reason.
They must have.
It's the only reason I'm here.
We were playing LoL before, so I guess that stack kind of ended.
just disintegrated.
Devin's probably eating, as he does.
Goddamn. All right, next game that I got was the last game for Makers and for MIBR through the course of the whole group stage, and I was a little bit concerned about this one. We went to Oregon. It was 7-4. I thought the Makers alibi ban, it was just one of those things that it will probably make sense with a little bit of deeper research, like to understand how they wanted that off the board, but I don't understand if MIBR were going to use it in some way. I thought it was confusing. I thought there was plenty of other stuff that you could have taken off the board in this case, other than an alibi, but let bygones be bygones at this point. And this was kind of a game where there was some really weird, questionable decision-making from Makers as it progressed, kind of like, especially on attack. There was one moment where Aqui like randomly peeks a Habana on main stairs, and there's a lot of other coverage and utility that still has to happen, but instead Aqui decides to get aggro. That thing that I talked about where they feel very content with the idea of not worried about a drone or utility clearing prior to going for an attack or swinging on something, and sometimes that does kind of come back to bite them. And when you have people like MIBR who are typically very on top of their guns more often than not, and for Aqui, who was 12-8 and had the best rating overall for his team, I felt like it was kind of a miscue. It was just kind of interesting that Makers had this really big dominant streak against teams from NA, but against teams from LATAM, I think against both NiP in the first day and this one, they didn't really have an answer either time. Got a couple of rounds, but momentum stalled out very quickly in both games for them.
Yeah, I think the alibi ban is kind of funny. I had Mango in my chat the other day, and he hates alibi. He thinks it's such a garbage operator. There's never a reason to bring it. So I thought of him when I saw that. And
there's a classic super clip of him bashing Milos for saying, "Oh, Alibi's gadgetry is really good," and I just remember him going, "Alibi is shit. What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah, I mean, Alibi's pretty garbage. But they banned her out and lost the game. So learn what you will from that.
I feel like maybe
Alibi
that's a
with
respectful way of Makers doing a no ban, because like in their PG Nationals,
yeah,
for like the first 6 weeks or whatever, no banned.
True.
Hide strats for SI. So maybe this is just big brain. And instead of doing like the BM no ban, they're just saving their defensive bans for the best of 3, and they'll bring out Oregon and just smash someone with some crazy defense ban.
Maybe it is that they're just not, or they're just used to playing with like a bunch of operators up. Like, did they have second ban or first ban on defense?
I want to say it was MIBR defense first, or I'm crazy. So if they would have had,
they would have had the first ban.
They would have had first ban, yeah.
Well, then I have no idea. I thought maybe like the only one they actually wanted to remove was Wamai, so they throw out something wild, but that doesn't hold then. So yeah, I don't know. They've got some weird up bans, I guess.
The team that straight up said no ban was MIBR against TSM.
True.
And I thought that was weird, but in this case, I just kind of felt like there's so many other things you could have done in this case. Oh, chat's telling me they banned her because Philippe Hawks plays her a lot on Oregon. I don't care. You're trying to ban Philippe Hawks. There's 4 other really good players in MIBR from, a gun skill perspective, and you're going to ban Alibi because of one dude? Come on.
Yeah, and nobody's like only good on Alibi. Like, if you're good on Alibi, that just means you're good. Like, Alibi is not the reason you're good. I don't know, man.
So many other things you could have done with the util, but nope, not to be.
Whatever.
Is what it is. All right. And then NiP's day started. How did that go?
NiP had to wake up a little bit here. They were playing really solo. TSM got a perfect half defending on Consulate. They went 6-0. And they played pretty good siege, I'd say. TSM not perfect, but I did like their play. I thought this was really good. But again, like, NiP's whole round strategy on attack seemed to be, we're going to take a 1v1, we're going to win that 1v1, and we're going to go take more 1v1s, and we're going to win them all. But, like, I don't see how they win any rounds if they don't win 1v1s. And they didn't win enough, right? So, like, they pretty consistently were getting outgunned, like Bolo, a cheat. Bolo had, like, a really sick 1v1 to start off the game. There was, like, I don't know. There was one round which looked really good for NiP. They were attacking. They were a 4v2 on tellers. They were going to hit that site. There's like 30 seconds left. All they have to do is flood the basement. They've lost everybody to C4s. It's a 4v2. Just go downstairs and fight. And they just never did that. And I don't know. I wasn't happy with any of NiP's play here. They did try to bring it back on defense. They got the first 2 rounds. And then eventually TSM were able to just catch them off guard, rush on into site, and frag out.
Yeah, a bit of a tricky game to pick apart. TSM again, just dominant in most aspects. For me, honestly, the most entertaining part of this match was when Merc hit the triple Z in the chat. That was about the only exciting thing in this matchup for me. Bit of BM was always fun. I don't think NiP would have appreciated that much. Honestly, they probably deserved it because they were a little bit asleep for the majority of that match, to be completely honest. Yeah,
and I think for those for fans who weren't watching this game, basically after the 6th round happened, so after it was 6-0 and TSM had a perfect defense, Mark just hit him with the zzz. I think he's he's sitting in sight, falling asleep. Nobody's coming to him. He wanted action.
You did this one, and then you had the NiP game from later, but we can kind of ask this question now. I was concerned about NiP solely because they kind of seemed like of any of the LATAM teams, they are one that simply don't worry about util clear very much. Is that something we should be concerned about, or that you noticed that like from this one and then from the SSG game, like for playoffs, maybe that's a kind of like a good thing to exploit for other teams that go up against them?
Yeah, this team cannot attack. This team is very defender-sided.
Yike.
I am very worried about how NiP will do in the upper bracket. Because even in that second game, their attacks were really struggling. And so it feels like they rely on a lot of gimmicky shit, like Monty and stuff, to make attacks work. And I think it's definitely going to be a huge problem. I think they play way too individualistic. They don't deal with utility well. I'm not a fan of the way NiP play the game.
Someone is telling me about a particular clip where Pino just drops Visa that hammers himself into site in kitchen. Do you know what round that was? I'll go back and find it because that sounds funny as shit.
Like on Villa or Consulate?
On Consulate. He's saying like round 4 or 5 for this game specifically. Wonder if we can figure out what this is.
Do you know what the bomb site was? Round 3 or...
Said it was 4 or 5. Everyone's saying round 5. Okay, cool. Was it like end of round 5? Because I'll go back and find it. I'm doing it right now.
I didn't write this play down. I'm not sure.
Let's see. I'm just gonna. Oh yeah, I'll just see like where Pino dies. Yeah, if we want to cut to replay, and then it happens right around this moment. Let's find out. I wasn't watching too intently.
Looking more like Muesli. These TSM boys are eating him up. It was Pino earlier, and now it's Muesli's turn to keep on stepping into these deaths time and time again. They've got to be more mindful of these things. This is a map like Consulate where everyone wants
He's kind of surrounded right now, which is a
Yeah.
tough spot to be in.
Solo.
Yeah, of course he is.
Oh, bye.
Yeah, like where's his fucking team?
Why?
That's what I'm saying. They
No
have
drones, nothing. He just like, and he smiles afterwards because he knows the blunder he just pulled. Like, why?
Yeah, like they had no coordination.
Psycho's still outside yellow, like, well, like...
Yes. What? And then I think Psycho just runs in. If we keep playing that, I think Psycho eventually just like decides, okay, I'm gonna go inside yellow. I guess at this point it's over anyways, so he can do whatever he wants. Yeah, he just walks in. That's fine, the kill.
This is literally me when I'm playing ranked, dude. Are you kidding me? Like, that's not really acceptable when you still have teammates up who can tell you if there's somebody there.
Yeah.
Like, before everything went to hell, we're still looking at like a 4v5 scenario. Like, they only lost Muzi, I think. That was it.
Yeah.
God
Yeah,
damn.
they were in a 4v5, and then Pino decided his team would be better off with only 3 people alive.
And they're still waiting outside. Oh, at this point, it's just
it's over. It's game.
yeah.
This round doesn't matter. They lost this
it's
one.
totally over. Yep.
Whatever.
God.
But
yeah, that's ridiculous.
how's the yikes indeed?
It is. All right. Last game for me, and then I'm done with groups. Then Jesse can regale us about his very final game. This is where things were definitely coming down to the wire, because at this point we were curious about if it was going to be Giants getting knocked out or Space Station getting knocked out. There also was, I think, a chance for NiP to have gotten eliminated out of this group completely just based on results, but they obviously had to win SSG to be safe, or win against SSG to be safe. But the main caveat here was that if both Space Station and Giants lost, because SSG had the tiebreaker over Giants, they would have the same record, but ultimately SSG would still be okay. And we were like, I know SSG were trying to see if they couldn't make like a higher position overall, maybe get like some better seeding, but they did need to be OXG's biggest fans at this exact moment, and that's exactly what OXG were able to provide. It was a slam. Like, Hysterics wasn't able to get going. Lunar Metal like literally could not get going. I think stats are probably going to reflect almost nobody was either in the green or had like a 1.0 rating or above. Like, it was bloody, and this was kind of a really disappointing way overall for Giants to kind of go out. Just because I had like higher hopes or higher expectations. Yeah, 0.76 was the highest, and it was Speakeasy who was able to really do anything. So good fucking grief. Laxing was across the map playing mute. Foxe had his roam game on point. This is kind of like, this was very reminiscent of the Makers game, just because Laxing and the rest of OXG on a map like Coast can just go spread, not allow anyone on Giants to get like a proper set, especially towards a bomb site. Like, this was a spanking, dude.
Yeah, I wasn't watching this, but like I do wonder if it was. I remember like we watched the CAG the Cags final game, right? And that was a heartbreaking match. You know, they were in tears afterwards. I don't know. I wonder if this was the same for Giants. It was a little bit of a different situation because Oxygen were playing for upper bracket here. If they lost this game, they'd be lower bracket based on how the other results went. But they won it, so they locked down the upper bracket. And so, like, they really did not want to give this one up. And yeah, they come out on top. Poor Giants, tough final day. It just feels like maybe this team's cracking under pressure because that's 2 years in a row dead last at SI.
Yeah, I think cracking under the pressure is probably the best way to frame it. Like I sort of touched a little bit on earlier, it feels like at least in APAC South, they've been cracking a little bit because I don't know how many people in chat would remember this, but literally last year in APAC North, they were one of the best teams. Them and Cloud9 were absolutely dominating that region, and Giants looked incredible. They looked absolutely amazing, and if they came into this SI with that form, then who knows what could have happened. But yeah, just the last couple of months for them has been pretty atrocious, and unfortunately not the best way to bow out from this tournament. I do hope that this sort of starts a resurgence for this team. Maybe they'll like really fire up from this. I feel like it could go one of two ways, right? They'll either bomb out from this, be super down about themselves, and they could go even worse in stage 2 of this year, or they could like be like, guys, like, we're fucking shit, we need to like really sort this out, bounce back, and then maybe stage 2 we can start to see a bit of an upwards trajectory, which would be really important for them. And if they want to get back to SI, they need to, right? Because they didn't get many, if any, points. I think they might have got a few from stage 1, but not really a significant amount. So
yeah, I think if they didn't make playoffs, they didn't get points, right? I think points were only given out at playoffs.
Oh, is that how APAC worked? Okay, got it.
Yeah, because
99% correct.
Yeah, because there's only there's not enough points to give out to teams that don't make the playoffs. So yeah, do you think there's like a chance that like we've talked about how this core has been alive for so long? Do you think there's a chance they go back to Singapore and they try to make some roster moves? Like, are there really any young Singaporeans they can pick up and start to grind with? It feels like it's like a very small player pool if they even did want to make a change.
Yeah, the player depth in Southeast Asia is probably not going to be enough to facilitate a roster move, but I don't think they would go down that route. I believe a lot of their players will be done with military service and all that pretty soon. Again, I'm not 100% sure on that, but hopefully once that's all out the way, the team can be at least like properly full-time, because as I understand it at the moment, not all of these players are full-time, which makes it really difficult. And that's been a story that has plagued APAC basically since day one, that a lot of the teams haven't been full-time. So maybe when they can start to dedicate some more time towards the game, that could help. But yeah, it's honestly pretty sad, pretty grim to be talking about the Giants in this fashion. So like, I'm just hoping they bounce back for APAC as a region as a whole, right, as well, because we need someone stepping up. And with Wildcard struggling at the moment and not even attending this SI, CYCLOPS struggling as well, and honestly Cloud9 not looking that great, it's pretty rough.
I didn't want to factor 2021 Stage 1 results too heavily into this, mostly because I know that like right before the Invitational, you're probably will not be trying to play and like reveal everything. I didn't think it was a super accurate like representation of performance. But for Giants, I want to say, with the exception of Empire, this was the only team that had like a positioning in their regional T1 league that was like lower than 5th place. So I did have some legitimate concerns, because Cloud9 and CYCLOPS obviously had like way stronger results, and they were giving me more confidence before the event began. But Giants just kind of had the overall sensation of, unless you show me something, I have no reason to really be confident in your play when you're going against other international teams. And so far in your collective international LAN history, it simply hasn't been met with positive results yet. So Jesse, did you have them going out in groups? Because I had Parabellum, but I know these guys weren't very far behind in my mind.
Call them as I see them, and I called Giants getting last.
Yeah.
SMH.
It is what it is.
You're all right.
Yeah,
so.
I know. Sorry, man.
I didn't have a far off either, so don't worry. I was not expecting big things, sadly.
No, fair play.
Oh.
All right. Last game of the entire group stage just had to be an SI 2020 rematch of the very first map, and I'm not going to lie, I was having Vietnam flashbacks to being in the stands in Montreal watching NiP slam who would end up being the world champions a couple of maps before they won. This looked bad. That game looked terrible. What were they doing, man? Was this a flawless half game? I'm trying to remember.
Yes, sir. Space Station Gaming Same problem as we saw all throughout the NAL. Troy coming back was supposed to fix the speed, right? Space Station Gaming, they play with Luke. They don't have an IGL. They play every attack like it's, you know, like they're like the end of the round is something they don't want to get to. You know, like planting the bomb is like, we'll get to it later. We'll get to it later. We lost the round, right? Like Space Station Gaming goes so slow on their attacks, and having a real IGL was supposed to fix that. So far, it hasn't. I don't know exactly what the calling structure is like. I don't know if it's gone back to, you know, how it was last year when Troy was on the team full time. If that was, if they've fully reverted back to that, or if it's some kind of mix in between with like Faults and Bosco still doing a good chunk of the calling. I have no idea. But once again, Space Station were slow on every single one of their attacks. So many times they were just, you know, they would be in a decent position. Like maybe they'd get a couple of picks early on, but then you eat a C4 and you lose the round. Or, you know, you just get pushed at the very last moment and you lose the round. And Space Station's attacks looked really, really weak. NiP went up 6-0 on defense. I was, you know, Vaudeville with Christian, the coach of Mirage, and he, you know, took it from a coach's perspective, and he's like, you know what, Lycan didn't call a timeout that entire half, which felt like a mistake when Space Station, you know, weren't finding anything. Yeah, you know, that's his style. I don't know how he wants to call his timeouts, but that seemed from the surface, from an outsider's point of view, like a mistake. When they swapped halves, when NiP went out to attack, we know NiP can't attack. When they lost their 3 rounds in a row, they did call a timeout. You know, they lost 3 rounds attacking. They called a timeout. They got themselves together, and they won the next round, and they won the game. And, you know, that feels like a part of the game that isn't necessarily discussed very often, but it was really cool getting to talk to, like, a coach and, you know, get his perspective on how those timeouts can actually be used to really win the game for NiP, because, you know, Space Station's perfect half got stopped halfway through after a timeout, and NiP's perfect half never stopped. It was always the same thing. So unfortunate for Space Station. This is a very serious loss for them, and I think this provides a red flag for them going into playoffs.
Is it safe to say that SSG are probably not going to back up their
Well, nothing's safe to say, Guzz. Nothing's safe to say. True. And as a North American fan, I will believe despite all odds. So, you know, there's plenty more tournaments
it would be the biggest miracle in Rainbow Six history if they made the miracle run through the lower bracket, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I call it that.
It's tough though. Yeah.
If we saw it, dude, I'd be totally down for it.
It also doesn't help that historically through tournaments that have had lower brackets so far, like in double elim, only the upper bracket one has ever won. Like, I think I talked about it before. It was only Liquid at OGA Pit and SSG at SI 2020, and the lower bracket team both times has not been able to win so far. So it's already like that one map advantage seems like it's something that you can't quite get over very effectively. And the fact that SSG are slumping in a very weird way and not winning any of their games on their final day, like taking OXG to max point OT is a nice achievement, but still no dubs. That to me is concerning, and it kind of suggests that they're not the same team that they were at SI last year, and they're not the same team that they were like right before Troy retired. I don't think it looked like the same squad.
You mean lower bracket international tournaments, right? Because we've had all last year we had lower bracket like 4-team tournaments.
No,
NA and stuff, and those did have some upsets. But
I definitely don't mean any of the online majors for sure. Yeah.
That's tough.
That's Group B. I'll do the stupid gag again. Books is shut. Yeah. Okay. I'm throwing that in the corner up until Wednesday. We're going to have to take more notes later, but we're done. If we can look at the standings again. Good Lord. It's been a long week, but it finally took until this point to get here. Yeah, I am worried about SSG. I would say I'm a little concerned for Parabellum, though if we get the opportunity to look at the predictions, which we should in a hot minute, I think Parabellum actually probably are going to be fine for at least their first match based on who they play. And for chat, if you're not aware of who they play, I won't reveal the big secret up until we see it. Though everyone else in the lower bracket, I don't totally know if they're going to survive past the first game. And for SSG, that is kind of a scary thing to say. Everyone in upper, I have way more confidence in. OXG simply took a long ass time to wake up. Like they were 1-2 and then managed to, 1-3 and then scraped back a perfect day for day 3. So their mentality and their counter-stratting were on point. NiP probably still a little bit of a cause for concern, but the fact that they swept SSG off their feet like they did is a good indicator if they can do that exact same thing on defense over over and over and over again, then they're probably fine. And then TSM and MIBR, in my head, no real concern in terms of how deep of an upper bracket run they can make it.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I'm a little worried about NiP. I'm a little worried about Space Station. Hey, I guess like everybody in the lower bracket, I don't think has a great shot of making it to the finals. But hey, these teams can make runs, and I think Oxygen, TSM, MIBR were the best 3 performing teams in the group for sure. And so I'm glad they made it through. I think those three teams being forced down a lower bracket just because of all the tiebreaker shenanigans we had to go through, potentially would have been a big loss. But I'm glad that they all made it.
Yeah, I still think it's probably fair to say that Group A is still the group of death, and
yep, 100%.
There's probably more teams in that group that have a higher likelihood of going and making a deeper run throughout the playoffs. That said, if I had to back anyone in, TSM and Oxygen at their very best, maybe, but again, their inconsistency could plague them, so we'll have to really see if that consistency is put to the test, and in a BO3 obviously it will be, so we'll see just how deep they can go there, and if they actually warm up to that format well. And if any of the teams warm up to that format, who knows who's going to bomb out when it comes to best of 3s, because for whatever reason, some teams just absolutely pop off in best of 1s and then are just complete bots in best of 3s for whatever reason. It may be their map pool depth isn't great or their endurance sucks or whatever the case may be. So
yeah, for
me, TSM, realistically, the only team in this group I see going really deep, but happy to be proven wrong, of course.
I'd like to make the case for a team like MIBR also being able to do something, but yeah, you're totally right. Time will tell. All right, is it prediction time? I think it's prediction time. Chat, if you wanted to know what these matchups looked like for playoffs, we had to play all of the group stage kind of as like the qualifier to get to this point. And now look at what we've got. Only 8 games, but these are those best of 3 matchups, and things could sway in completely different ways. And this is the reason why I thought Parabellum might have a chance to go far. It's because they're playing G2. I like a lot of these games. I really, really, really like a lot of these matchups to start with. This should be really fun. And it's also worth to mention, chat, 1 through 4 is upper bracket, 5 through 8 is lower. But yeah. Jesse, you want to start first? Empire versus OXG?
Empire versus OXG, huh? Yeah. This is tough, honestly, right off the bat, because I know Empire are a good team. I know. But I just think they're very based off of joystick right now. And like they do play kind of scrappy, which I'm not a fan of. Oxygen can too. Yeah, fuck it. It's SI. We'll go Oxygen Esports. We're gonna keep the North American dream alive.
Okay.
Probably not the safe pick, but again, like I think if they can play the way that they played in the NAL this year, they absolutely have a chance to go all the way to grand finals. But they didn't play like that the entire time through the group stage. Empire probably was more consistent through the group stage, but I like Auction's peak better than I've liked anything peak I've seen out of Empire.
Yeah, the thing I disagree on is that OXG can topple a team like Empire. The only thing that was really kind of a caveat for the group that Empire played in is that it seemed like it was overall like easier, and I don't even necessarily mean that because Empire like were dominating most of the games that they were playing, and I more mean that because they like the bottom half of Group A seemed like it was not up to snuff with a team of Russians that were all playing on not 60 to 70 ping, because if that was enough of a problem during the EUL stages that they weren't able to progress very far, then it kind of stands to reason that when they're on land, they're far more connected. And even against teams that are in the upper bracket, I still will say that OXG still showed enough shakes that I'm not as confident in them having a very deep run in the bracket as I am in Empire's like resurgence and like playing in an environment where we know that they can do well. So for me, I'm still an Empire fanboy. Let's see if they can go.
Yeah, it's such a tough one, right? Because OXG, when they've been winning games, have just been crazy. They've been dominant, right? They absolutely smashed Parabellum. They absolutely smashed Makers. But before SI, those are 2 teams that we would have expected to not go very far. Makers and both Parabellum probably over performing our expectations is what I'm trying to say here.
For sure.
Yeah.
Of course, Oxygen beat Giants as well, right? So I don't think any of their wins are standing out to me as being crazy. SSG was super close. SSG not very good at the moment, and outside of that, they really struggled against TSM. Latin America also tripped them up a little bit as well. So, for me, Empire should take this one out. I don't know if we're doing scorelines, but 2-1 should be the case here. Oxygen, I think, will look good on their map pick, but Empire, especially if Joystick shows up, because that bet has just been absolutely cracked. There's no way Oxygen will be able to shut him down. I mean, literally no one has been able to shut down Joystick yet. So that would be a mean effort if they managed to do so. But yeah, definitely Empire for me.
Guys, you want to start out with the BR6 matchup, Liquid and MIBR? This is a good one.
Ooh, this is a tough one. For me, heading into SI, Liquid looked better on paper. They had stronger results regionally. But MIBR, I don't know. I didn't rate them as highly as I think Jesse may have heading into this tournament. But from what we've seen so far, they have looked quite strong. So really hard one to match these two together. I would back Liquid in just, but I would expect this to be a really, really close match. It may not be the highest quality siege we'll see in this group stage or the most exciting by any stretch, but I think it will be really close, and that should make it fun. So yeah, we'll lock in Liquid for this one for me.
Jesse?
No, I'm still deciding. You go first.
Okay, so I'm really basing this one more off a head-to-head record, especially recently. MIBR did beat them in stage 1 of BR6, but then we headed to Copa Elite, and that was where I want to say it was grand final territory, where MIBR and Liquid were finally able to catch up. Liquid did beat them in the group stage of Copa 7-2, and then in the grand final, I want to say it was like a multi-overtime game, if I'm not mistaken, or they had one map go to overtime, and then the other ones were 7-4, 7-5, and Liquid looked really, really good. They had to play like a whole bunch of like endurance games over the course of that bracket, and Liquid against every other BR16 that was in that stage did really, really well. So simply based off previous results, I don't know how much LAN is going to factor into how they will perform in this case, but I will also take Liquid.
I think I went pretty hot on my first take. I'm going to cool down a little bit. I think Liquid probably is the right pick here. I was trying to justify it in my head for MIBR. I really was. I love a lot of the play that they brought out. You know, specifically even today, like they played really well, I thought, in a couple of their games. Actually, I didn't watch their games. I'm mostly judging off score lines. So yeah, fuck that. I can't pick MIBR. We've got to go Liquid.
That sounds good. I'll start out with this next one.
Come on.
You've already put Paramount.
Just because I'm wearing the shirt?
Oh my gosh. For BDS NiP, I'm going to say this preemptively. R6 events can use this clip against me at some point if they so choose, but BDS does indeed take it. I think that Jesse's point about NiP not being a very good team on attack is not going to hold up very well against BDS, who overall look like they can play in a couple of different styles or adapt really, really well to a team's individual play. And this is a rematch, actually, of probably one of the most underrated matches that we saw from SI last year in an elimination game. It was BDS against NiP. That would be the game that I think put NiP against TSM in the lower bracket final, but BDS were really, really close. And now that they have like the missing piece of their puzzle in Alems, who is putting on a stellar performance like the entirety of the group stage, I think BDS get this one.
Yeah, I will back Jacob into this, and I'll double down. I think this will be a BDS 2-0. Honestly, it'd be pretty dominant. In my opinion. Okay. They just look better rounded. And NiP struggling on their attacks is just not going to bode well for them. And BDS should be able to mount a lot of pressure, I believe, in that area of the game. And fun fact outside of that, BDS had the best round diff in Group A, and I just honestly see them taking the whole thing. So if they want to do that, they probably need to win this game. Hey, so we'll back them in.
Yeah. It genuinely is like a question for me of like, who makes the upper bracket, like, or the one map advantage? Is it Empire or is it BDS? And dude, BDS looks so good right now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think I agree. BDS take it. Not just this game, but the whole tournament looks like they're the favorites in my mind. I haven't decided yet who I want to pick for the favorites now that we know groups, but I think BDS might be the best team at this tournament.
All right, Jesse, FaZe Clan, TSM.
We'll go TSM. I think FaZe Clan have struggled a little bit in best of threes. You even looked at like Copa Elite 6, I believe they did a bit worse than they did in like the regular season of Latin America, or Brazil, I should say, because it's not LATAM. But I don't know. I think TSM, I guess, you know, on the other side of the coin, play much better in best of threes than they have in best of ones. Now it's been a little while since we've seen them in a best of three, so maybe that's just, you know, them gotten worse recently, but I do think they should be able to come out on top, just based off of fact that it's a best of 3 now. It's TSM, they're the established team. FaZe Clan, keep in mind this used to be MIBR, so this isn't even like that experience of a roster. Right. I gotta go TSM in this one.
Guzz?
Yeah, TSM 2-0 again. I'm going to go for another bold prediction, but it should be a pretty easy game, I believe, for them. Keeping in mind that this was the old MIBR roster on FaZe at the moment, and they just really don't have a whole lot of international success. They don't have a big pedigree backing them up. And sure, TSM haven't, gone absolutely nuclear in any international events, but they've definitely done better than their counterparts on this occasion. And as Jesse arose, their Copa Elite 6 performance, finishing 5th and just completely bombing out, was very disappointing for them. I believe that match was against Team 1, if I'm remembering.
It was. I just looked it up as well.
So, yeah, it doesn't bode well for them. And again, being Seed 1 taking on Seed 4, you would just expect TSM to take it on face value. So, yeah, TSM for me, 2-0 the score.
I think FaZe Clan showed enough shakes through all of Group A, whereas TSM didn't show very many shakes for Group B and beat both Latin American teams. What was like 7-3 against MIBR and then 7-2 against Ninjas in Pajamas today. So it's not to say that every Latin American team is going to play with the exact same play style, but FaZe, when they get flustered, kind of throw rounds overall. Like their mentality can get very low very quickly, and TSM, with the gun skill that they've got, is absolutely a team that can tilt them in that direction. I don't think it'll be a slam. I think it'll probably be a little bit closer. Maybe we end up going to a map 3, but it should be entertaining as hell. I will still take TSM in the long run, just for me.
Good call.
So that's all upper bracket. Now we get to lower, and this is elimination territory. So bear in mind, if you want any of these teams to go anywhere in the lower bracket, then maybe don't predict them to lose. Guzz, Team 1, SSG, what do you think?
My brain wants to predict Team 1, but my heart sort of wants to go with SSG.
I know, yeah.
Honestly, I can sort of justify it in my head that SSG take this, right? Because, and I know Dev's in the chat, so he'll back me up here, but Team 1 are a pretty unknown quantity heading into this tournament. Remembering all the roster shuffles that happened, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Team 1 roster we're seeing at SI aren't even the team that qualified to get them here.
Correct.
No.
Correct.
So there was one player on Team 1 who was on an SI qualifying roster, and that was KDS. Everyone else is brand new.
Yeah, so maybe I can back SSG, and then thinking that just their overall experience can get them through in a best of 3, but the stakes are really high. Team 1 are the better team, but we'll go with SSG just for the lols. Why not?
Dang, okay. Flips at the last second. I kind of want to do the same thing. I'm really, really tempted to do the same thing. The thing is, Team 1 play a bit of a different style so far, or have played a different style to the rest of the other Latin American teams kind of in Group A, to the point that we can kind of use their games against Fury, against FaZe, against Liquid, kind of as like direct comparisons about how they play overall. But against an NA team, they did they get slapped by Dark Zero, or get slapped?
No, they slapped Dark Zero.
They slapped easy.
Alamod smacks. Probably slapped Dark Zero.
Fair enough.
No, I bet. My heart also says SSG, but overall Team 1 have shown whether it's a confidence thing, if it's a gun skill thing, I don't totally know. The only way in which they end up winning this game, or SSG end up winning, is if Rampy and Fultz both show up, and they did on day 2, but on day 1, days 1 and 3, it seemed like Fultz or Rampy, either one of them, weren't really able to enter the lobby either time. So on principle, and going just with where my brain is telling me to go, I hate to knock SSG out this quick, but I am going to go for Team 1.
Yeah, I don't know if Team 1 are the better team in this matchup, to be honest with you. Like, their group stage was pretty good, but like, they beat Cloud9. That was like kind of a meh game. They beat G2. That was a huge throw. They beat Dark Zero. I didn't see that game, so that might have been like the one that is changing everybody's mind that I'm just not catching. But sure. I don't know. They didn't actually impress me like crazy. I think they impressed me more in BR6 and like Copa Elite 6 particularly than they did in the group stage. But that said, I just watched Space Station throw they're making the same mistakes that they made in the regular season. Their mentals does not seem strong in this tournament. Like, I'm gonna go with Team 1, even though I think Space Station's peak probably is like considerably higher than Team 1's peak. I just don't like the way that they've been playing, and it worries me drastically that they've been having the exact same mistakes that they were having with Luke on their roster with, you know, Troy here.
Yeah. This might be a bit of a curse pick, but not. This isn't even a meme. Like at this stage in the game, based on how G2 have been performing, I'm going with the Parabellum pick. I'm doing it. Like if Jesse's doing it like for the meme, I'm doing it because at this point the dream is real and I'm kind of all in on the PB train. Like these dudes have something on not just the teams that were in their bracket, like to help them go 3-0 undefeated 2 days ago, but G2 are not very clearly not the same team, but they are also still figuring things out on the fly. Who is going to be, you know, leading the charge? Is Citizen's performance always conducive to a round or a match win? How are they going to structure themselves? Like G2 can do very well in clutch moments, but overall this tournament has shown that in the long haul, their mental can also get shocked very early on. So let's give it to PB. Let's see if they can go, at the very least, one game through the lower bracket. I don't think this is G2's tournament to win. I think they're definitely on the back foot throughout the entirety of the bracket, no matter how far they go.
What a world we live in.
I don't think it's even a hot take. Is it really a hot take to back Parabellum into this match? Honestly, like
I don't think it is too much.
They've been playing quite well, and we can bang on for days about, you know, strategy and meta and whatnot, but the one thing that has really stood out to me that is a stark contrast between these two teams is just the body language and the attitude of these players on the stage.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
G2 time and time again have just looked completely dead on stage. No one talking in timeouts, everyone with their head down, no one really looking like they want to be there, to be completely honest. Whereas Parabellum, sure, they've had their moments where they've looked pretty fired up, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, you know, they've been pretty happy. They're just happy to be here. Like, they don't have any expectation heading into this tournament. They'll just go into this match and go, if we can beat G2, well, cool, that'd be fun. If we go home early, well, so what, we had this experience, we get a bit of prize money. So I expect them to take this one. I don't think it will be too one-sided. You would expect G2 would still have really strong pedigree in this matchup, but I want to see Parabellum make that dream run, and I don't think it's honestly that unrealistic.
Yeah, I agree with everything Guzz just said. I think G2 is the better team, to be clear. I think Parabellum's level of play has not reached to what we've, you know, maybe I'm still overrating G2. That's possible. Maybe G2 is just like significantly worse than I'm rating them in my head. But I do genuinely think G2 is the better team. But I don't think they have I don't think they have the mental capacity to beat Parabellum. And so I gotta pick Parabellum as well, not even as a meme. I have a bad feeling that North America is going to get slammed through the rest of this tournament. So I'm going to take this win. I'm going to hope it actually happens. I'm going to close my eyes and I'm just going to hold it over the Europeans' heads till I die.
And just so you have an idea about where Parabellum's heads are at, like G2 are probably playing this like very seriously, in it to win it, like as much as they can. They will take every single round like hardcore, stratting everything out, using, you know, counter strats or strategies, like whatever it might be. They will be at the top of their game wherever they can. But just so you understand where PB's mentality is at, the main reason why, like, I don't remember if it was Penguin or Spirits, but somebody who was in the watch party that I was in at the very end of today said the only reason why I wanted to make playoffs is because we get fried chicken on Wednesday. Like that's just where their heads are at right now. Like these dudes already have like a $55,000 purse that they've claimed, and they're in here with almost no pressure on their backs. They made playoffs. These guys are not trying to play with the same level of seriousness as G2. Doesn't mean that they won't play well, but their mentality is significantly improved. I really do agree with Guzz on that point. So
yeah, where they are right now, if they lose every game, in fact, just by attending Sixth Invitational, they made as much in prize money as every team in Challenger League combined will make this stage from prize money.
Yeah.
So
like if they get first place in CL, it's like $12,000 or something, but they've already made so much more than that by just qualifying straight up. Like,
yeah, qualifying got them 40,000. The Challenger League prize pool is 40,000. So that's where they're at.
Good shit.
Wait, quick question. Is Challenger League for NA running at the moment still?
It's currently running, yes.
So is Parabellum competing in it at the moment, or what's going on?
That's actually what we're waiting on. So we have one final play day for NACL that's going to happen, I think, in like an hour or two, and there are a couple of games from there that will determine if PB make top 3 in their group. Right now they're in third, but they have the potential to be surpassed. If they make it, my guess is they just forfeit it because they can't play it. So the team that's below them will probably just get up to it. But if the team that they're supposed to play or lose to would qualify and overtake them in that top 3, then they wouldn't be there anyway. So
yeah, and
I
so
don't think they will be playing
during
CL
SI.
playoffs from France. Yeah, I don't think so.
It's so strange. Normally, like all tournaments will be halted during SI, so that's pretty peculiar to me. Maybe there's a reason that I'm overlooking.
There is a reason, and that's mostly just because SI got shuffled around a little bit because of like the reschedule, and the whole stage got compressed. Had we had like a typical like May major as opposed to the Invitational, then it wouldn't have been a problem. But the transfer window has to end, and the whole CL stage isn't done yet. And so if the transfer window opens after SI is done, then they just have to get the stage done before transfer window opens. So that's the main reason. Yeah. But hopefully the games don't overlap and we can actually have the Stage 1 finals for CL happen after the SI Grand Final is done on Sunday. So I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that's the case. But
yeah,
it's a pain.
And, I mean, they've already shuffled matches. Like, they already made Parabellum play
a couple
early.
Of times.
So if they might be able to shuffle matches again. And like if Parabellum have to wait like a couple more days to get sent home because they come home immediately, maybe they can play. I don't know.
All right. 2 more games. This is the one that we knew from yesterday that we incorrectly called as being Cloud9 Team 1, but the one that is a rematch of Group A, the only one because 5 teams made lower bracket, is DZ Furia. Jesse, what are you thinking?
It's like, it scares me how much I have to think about this because Dark Zero have been... Like, this is the game Dark Zero should, like, win easy. I think Furia are just, like, not on the same level. But, like, the level of play we see from Dark Zero has been... It's been hit or miss, I guess, and it's been kind of bad. This was, I guess, the final game they played, wasn't it? So this game was the last game of the day for yesterday. It was kind of irrelevant, but it was a 7-3 for Dark Zero Furia. I don't know if they knew they'd be playing each other. I thought it would be Team 1 versus Cloud9 in the A group playing each other, but they did it this way instead, which I understand. And I think that there's logic behind that. So I don't know. I don't know how well you can read into that Oregon game between Furia and Dark Zero. I think while I do, I'm gonna go with the smart play. I'm gonna pick Dark Zero, but I'm like worried they lose this one because the way they played in groups just makes me uncomfortable. It is best of 3 though. I think Dark Zero should be able to clutch this one out, but this would be a very Dark Zero move to throw this game.
Yeah, you're not wrong, Guzz.
That's rough. If this was another best of 1, maybe back Furia in just because Dark Zero don't seem to be in the greatest of form. Being a best of 3, it's difficult to look past them because they have that depth. They are known for having that depth. It's their scariest aspect to their play, and when they're not, performing strongly individually, they can always try and rely on that. I think the game plan for Dark Zero heading into this one is ban Blitz every single game, so Min can't steal it and run in and throw for the team.
Please.
No, jokes aside, that was actually working in a couple of rounds, but yeah, a bit of a desperation play from them. It's a tough prediction, this one. I'll go Furia just to annoy you guys.
I think there's basis in either one. That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's a very tough one.
So DZ against Brazilian teams had a 1-3 record in their group, I want to say. They lost to Team 1, they lost to Liquid, and they lost to FaZe. The one Brazilian team they were able to beat on their last day yesterday, believe it or not, was Furia. I don't think that's a reason by itself that can lead to a best of 3 success, but the fact that we are moving into a best of 3 and that DZ did really, really well against Furia so far on their first day does give me more confidence, and this is also a risky pick. I would say, honestly, in my mind, the safer pick is Furia. I kind of agree with Jesse. I think DZ is overall a better squad, and that's also considering that Furia have had to move 2 new players into their team, whereas Dark Zero have only had to move 1 prior to the start of Stage 1. But I will go with Dark Zero. This is partially NA fanboy coming out, but it's also that they clearly had something going in that game against Furia where they decided we can't use Blitz, so we're going to play the game normally, and everyone seemed like they were fitting into their roles more like adequately. The one exception being that Habana was being played by Skies, whereas the man was doing good on every other operator through the group stage and like didn't need to play a hard breach. But if they have a solid game plan, I think DZ win this one easy. I'm just praying. Fingers are crossed. I don't know what we're gonna do, but we'll see. All right, last game, Makers, Cloud9. We'll let the APAC caster talk about the lone APAC team in this group. Guzz, you want to start out?
This is going to pain me talking about this matchup.
Yeah.
God, I really want to back Cloud9 going into this one, but I don't see them going very far. Not only do they seem to be struggling at the moment, but they seem to struggle at every single international event they have ever made it, whether it be in APAC finals back in the old format of Pro League or whatever the case may be. They just really seem to struggle when they're outside of their old Korea region, now the APAC North region. They are so isolated, and whenever they seem to intertwine with other regions, it's really difficult. Compound on top of that the fact that they didn't really have a serious opportunity to boot camp. I'm sure teams would have been scrimming in Paris, but outside of that, no real opportunity to scrim any of the other European teams, and it obviously has proved quite costly for them. Makers, on the other hand, have been coming out of the gate super duper strong. It's going to be a messy match. It's probably not going to be the greatest match of Siege ever played in the history of this game. It's going to be disgusting, to be completely honest. But Makers should thrive in this chaos. Yeah, I'll lock it in. It kills me.
I just felt your soul die, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be crying when Cloud9 lose, but that's probably going to be what happens.
I can't say I disagree. I said before we kind of got here, it was either going to be we go to like 2-1, Cloud9 managed to keep things really close, or it's going to be like just 2-0 domination throughout, and Makers ultimately, I think in both cases, probably win in both hypothetical scenarios. So I always root for the underdogs where possible, especially when it's Cloud9, and Korea had some good things to show from this tournament, but they did scrape by into this group kind of by the skin of their teeth, and Makers have a lot more things about them that I think are redeemable in terms of lower bracket success. So yeah, I got to go with Makers too.
I don't think this is as cut and dry as you guys are claiming it to be. Because like
prove me wrong.
Well, there's the Maker's hype, right? And it's sitting there on the shelf in the hype store. And I see it sitting there. I do. I understand where it is. And I've been on the fence about purchasing it like this entire tournament. I don't know, man. I'm trying to save money. I don't know if I want to spend all my hard-earned cash on Maker's hype. But
are you saying the demo speech did not convince you?
Not even a little bit. Demo pushed me the opposite direction. I haven't been, I don't know. If I'm looking through my notes to find something good about Cloud9 that like will give me confidence enough to pick them over Makers.
APAC North. That's something, I guess.
They beat FaZe Clan.
Yeah, but they lost to what they lost to Elevate in the finals, and I only watched the finals.
They lost to G2,
so...
and G2 sucks. So
yeah. Yeah.
Same thing, right?
I don't know. I feel like even when I look through my notes in the games where Cloud9 won, right, or at least like did well, right? Like you look at that final playday, and I look at this final playday. I watched all of the A stream, so I saw all three of Cloud9's games on the final day, right? And they played against BDS, G2, Dark Zero, three like historically good teams. They got very good. They got very close on all three games, right? 7-5, 7-5, 8-7. But like a lot of the stuff I wrote down on all three of these games were like pretty negative points about how Cloud9 was throwing. They were playing too aggressive. They were making the same mistake over and over again. I'm gonna go Makers. I don't want to, but I'm gonna go Makers. Cloud9 just don't impress me right now, and yeah, maybe this will be maybe I'll purchase the Makers hype another day. I'll leave the store. I'll come back on Wednesday, see if I want to buy it afterwards. But for now, I'm just mostly betting against C9.
All right, then. So someone can screenshot this, put it on Twitter at R6Events, and let us know exactly how bad we end up doing just from the first round. What a lot of this ends up setting up, by the way, is that the games directly feed into one another. So if our predictions were correct, then the team that you picked in game number 1 will face the team that you picked in game number 2, based on how the bracket shapes out. And the same thing can be said for like 5, 6, and 7, 8. So based like I'm looking forward to Liquid Empire again, but I am most assuredly looking forward to BDS TSM because the fact that both of them got split up in groups and now they clash in a best of 3. Oh, give me more of that. Inject that in my veins, please.
Yeah, you're looking at that. I'm looking at Parabellum and then One or Space Station. I'm thinking winnable, boys.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel that.
I'm down. Okay.
We'll see.
God, some of these games look really, really good. But the tragedy about it is we also have to knock out 4 teams on Wednesday and another 4 teams on Thursday right after that. So I'm about to start making a whole bunch of Siege Gods always demand sacrifice tweets with everyone who gets knocked out per day, because man, it's gonna kill me inside to see some of these guys go home after what we saw. But it is what it is.
Tough.
All right. Chat, your turn. We'll keep it pretty short. We'll do a Q&A. Anything about the last bit of groups? Anything about playoffs that you want to ask? Anything more specific to Guzz, who is here for this episode? Anything you want to keep this poor man awake for longer than past his bedtime for the 6th night in a row? Go ahead and throw it in chat.
And no APAC roasts, all right? Or I leave.
Chat's talking about the bracket. 5 doesn't play 6. I believe 5 plays 6. According to Wikipedia, and this was also on the broadcast, I saw this. So yeah, the winner of 1 space station will play the winner of G2 Parabellum.
Yep.
That was confirmed. Which team has the biggest advantage with best of 3 format?
I don't know. I would be inclined to say NA teams because NAL for last year was best of 3, but not the same beast for NAL for this year. And it's also to say that online best of 3 versus LAN best of 3 probably isn't quite the same mentality. So I don't know.
I think TSM. I think sure, like I think they played better in best of 3s last year than they have been playing in best of 1s, and I think like NA's playstyle is just genuinely like the fact that it's more structured also means it's more prone to mistakes, and mistakes just destroy you in best of 1s. Like they just don't in a best of 3. So you can get away with like slipping a little bit more in a best of 3, and I think just that little bit of looseness helps out North America a ton.
Yeah, I think overall probably TSM relative to group stage performances, maybe your likes of Space Station and Dark Zero could perform better than they did in the group stage.
That's fair.
I think, that experience in best of 3s is going to be really, really, really important, because not only is it testing your map pool, but it's the things like your endurance and your mental that are obviously really, really important as well.
I'll say BDS in my case, and that's more because over the span of 2020, not only were they doing really good in their best of 1 for their league format, but every time they made a major or a final, there really wasn't a case in which they sucked in a best of 3, aside from when they ultimately ended up losing. But when they did, things were still pretty damn close, I think, overall. So they just have a super strong pattern of consistency for not having a league format that dictated they play best of 3s, whereas NA did for 2 different stages from last year. So I think BDS can also can hang with those boys in that way.
Chat said Wikipedia has a different bracket. I'm looking at it, and it's the exact same bracket that we were having on our.
It is the same bracket, yeah.
On our thing. So
if we get it wrong, ultimately not the craziest thing in the world, because it'll just mean that all of our predictions are wrong. But I think we'll be all right as soon as they release an official schedule. But the reason why
broadcast it was the same as what we have.
Yeah, and you go through and you play all of the games in the group stage, and then you get seeded based on where you end up placing, which is why it's not just randomized. It was a random draw for the teams that made upper bracket or for playoffs or SI from last year, but in this case, it is deliberately seeded that way. What do we got? How do you feel about the map advantage in finals versus some other format, i.e. Feral and Pengu brought up doing 1 best of 3, and then the upper bracket winner loses, you do a 2nd best of 3. A bracket reset final as opposed to a 1 map advantage best of 5. I've always disliked it. I never really thought it was worthwhile.
Wait, no, I realize chat is right. I know I shouldn't say that, but basically what they're saying is not what I thought they were saying.
What are they saying?
For the lower bracket, they play the losers of the upper bracket. They don't play each other. Because duh. Right?
Right.
So, we're not going to see Parabellum versus Team 1, for example. Until later in the tournament.
Oh,
because they play the losers of the upper bracket.
Yeah, that's fair. So, so on that prediction screen, 1 does play 2 and 3 does play 4, but then 5 plays the loser of 1, and then 6 plays the loser of 2. That makes sense. Okay. Got it.
Sorry, chat. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, but on the OG question, bracket reset sucks. Not only because you have to go through and potentially play 2 best of 3s back to back, which is 1 more potential map than a normal best of 5 would be, and then 2 maps more than what a best of 5 with a 1 map advantage ends up looking like. I don't think that really answers the question about what sort of advantage should the team that goes to the grand final from the upper bracket. That reward should not be a 1 series advantage. I think that's too much in my mind. So I like 1 map advantage overall.
Yeah, my first long cast in TF2 was a bracket reset, best of 3 into a best of 3. Went all 6 maps. I believe it was 8 hours, and the sun was coming up when I finished casting those 6 maps.
What the hell?
And I never want to do that again. Do not do bracket resets. Those suck.
Yep.
I will say I don't think 1 map advantage. I don't like 1 map advantage either. I think it should be just a straight best of 5. Just like map ban or something. Like give them the extra. Just give them like advantage in map ban or something like. That's my. I think there's a better argument for 1 map advantage. I think like there's a strong argument for 1 map advantage. Personally, though, I'd prefer a straight best of 5.
If it was a case where maybe not even like they get to pick first, but almost like they get to pick like the first 2 maps or something like that, or maybe like the first 3. Give them the ability to flex and advantage that they should have earned through getting through the upper bracket, I feel. But yeah,
sure.
There's an overall better feeling around just a straight 1 map as opposed to a whole other series, honestly.
Yeah.
Is there infinite OT in the best of 3s? I believe infinite OT is only the grand final.
Yeah,
that's what I'm
99% sure about that too. Yep.
Yeah.
Hope not in the best of 3s, or we could have some long ass broadcasts.
You have any idea? We've had games go 8-7 through group stage. You don't think we'd have like best of 3 series go to like 20 rounds? You don't want that.
Yeah, I mean, I think in an ideal world we would have unlimited OT. It's like obviously the most competitive. It's got the most competitive integrity. And at the end of the day, you would have the better team win, but it's just not viable. You see it time and time again in CS broadcasts, for example. They just go absolutely fucking all night. I know there's like this meme in like Australian CS where like we have so many games that go infinite OT and it just blows out the schedule and games go to like 3 in the morning. No one's gonna be watching it by the end of it. So yeah, in an ideal world, yes, but it's just really not viable outside of a grand final, unfortunately.
Does it happen in Australia that you end up going to like more than like triple OT? Does like quadruple OT happen a lot to the point that meme is a thing?
I think there's records held, or very close to records held in like Australian CS, like longest OTs in like global CS. Like it's just absolutely ridiculous. And
what's the number?
The thing is, like I don't know, like 8 times OT or something. Like I don't know, it's absolutely ridiculous. I can't remember exact numbers, but and the thing is, in CS the downtime's a lot less, right? In Siege, it just adds so much more additional time. It like even just 1 extra round of OT adds like 10 minutes, and you start multiplying that over and over, and gets out of hand pretty quickly, unfortunately. But
yeah, CS rounds are way shorter than. They're like half the time as Siege rounds.
Half, a third, even.
Yeah. It's crazy.
We also there's a T3 league in North America called SCS, which had its regular season games run with infinite overtime, and some of them did go to like 11 to 13. I know, for regular season competition, they had games running for 2 hours, and I don't know why.
No.
Yeah.
That's a yikes. That's the good thing that was fixed about this group stage, right? For stage 1 globally, you actually got points for OT, and that was something that I have wanted for ages because it fixed that issue.
For sure.
I can only imagine that this SI didn't have it in the group stage because teams qualified based off last year's format. I think that might be the reasoning. I don't know.
I think so.
But I hope next year that OT points are rewarded. I don't think it really would have changed the result much at the end of the day, but it makes sense for the format to be the same.
For groups more specifically? Yeah, so...
Yeah.
Well, I mean...
there should be some parity, right? Between how you qualify for SI and then how you earn points in SI. That's what makes sense to me, at least.
Yeah. For the Reddit crowd that was very convinced that not having overtime point values was a massive mistake. There were some people who kept track of like what games would have turned into overall. Yeah, so Group B, nothing changed. Literally everyone was in like the exact same positions, and the only thing that changed overall, I believe, was one team jumping up to Group A. Maybe it was Team 1, maybe it was I don't remember who, but only one team's position overall from Group A changed the entire time. So it was close. Yes, there were a lot of overtime matchups, but ultimately, just from a scoring POV, it simply did not matter in the long run. So
I'm gonna take a different take here. I think first of all, you want to have like things similar to how they were when they qualified. I don't really care. I think you should have the better format in the better like tournament, right? Six Invitational. I think objectively having overtime points like count for something, like losing an overtime count for something, I think is objectively just like better. And so I think when you have the biggest tournament of the year, like consistency with last year, I don't really care. I think you give it the best. You give it the best format. Second, some people said the math that Cloud9 would be going home if it was the other format. I don't know on that.
Okay.
I haven't ran it. But I don't think it matters, right? It's the principle of it. You're gonna get a closer score line. Like you're gonna get a better result, and you're gonna get the better teams through. I think more often, if you have a more balanced format that rewards teams that at least push to overtime, right? So I would prefer if they had done it the other way. I don't think it's the end of the world. I'm not gonna pull my hair out and cry about it, but like I would have preferred it if we had the regular season point system.
I'll believe it if Dev is saying that it ultimately would have if it what two teams changing places, it would have been G2 and CAG above C9 and Furia. I'll buy it if that ends up being what the math says, because I wasn't totally sure off the top of my head. But I do agree on the basis that a tournament format doesn't necessarily need to follow through with whatever was happening from a regular season. In the same case, like you'll see tournaments, like especially in CS. Like I'm trying to remember the last time I looked at a Faceit CS page or a Liquipedia page was, I believe it was like the Faceit major, and the entire first stage was all Swiss, and then everything else after that was like another Swiss stage and then a best of 3 playoff bracket, which doesn't happen for any of like the league competitions that helped qualify those teams for that event in the first place. And the same doesn't necessarily have to apply. I think you can get more flexible with other formats for tournaments. Leagues, it's a little bit weird. You might as well keep those normalized, but for tournaments, you can do kind of whatever the hell you want. So
Xenox is saying not enough team went home after groups. Would you have thought that more teams, like, because that's kind of, I feel, an issue of COVID, right? Like the fact that a couple teams didn't go. Okay, Dev, I saw your tweet, and then I see you in here as well. What's wrong with Swiss? Like, I thought Swiss worked really well in APAC North.
Swiss was shit for APAC North. No,
why? Tell me why.
No prep.
I don't know what it was about APAC North last year, but their point system was fucked, because it wasn't just Swiss. It was like Swiss plus this like mathematical bullshit, and it just made it way too, like, you could never tune in to an APAC North broadcast. And I don't know if this was more so a failure by production and whatnot in conveying the standings, but it was just so difficult to track what was going on, why these teams were versing each other. So maybe if you lay it out nice and clearly and make it really obvious why that's the case, it could work out, because we, of course, as Jacob said, we see it often in other tournament formats. Like, it's nothing extravagant, but yeah, in APAC North, it was terrible.
I think the problem with APAC North system was the point system that they used with it, like to try to to seed people, basically. Like,
and they had like these phases, and like it was never very clear.
Yeah.
Like, you would always have to be going to Liquipedia to constantly check what was going on, which made it really confusing.
Okay, that's fair enough. I think that I would argue that was less of a problem with Swiss and more of a problem with like the seeding system they use, because you do need seeding for Swiss to work. But SI has a perfect seeding system. It's called SI points. We already have that. I think that would be a fine use instead. But yeah, I would like to see Swiss at SI. I think that'd be sick.
That'd be cool.
Yep. We can get frisky with different formats. Like, I wouldn't mind if any major tournament ended up going the way of doing some crazy things that we've seen in CS, because that is where we've seen like Swiss formats come out, like 4 FPS titles, I think, probably most predominantly. But we don't always have to stick to doing 4 GSL style groups. We don't have to stick to 10 teams and then doing it in best of ones. There are lots of different things that we can do, especially like with a standard 16 team list of attendees for, like, especially for a major event. And the fact that we are supposed to be having 3 majors per year means we can see some differences. So I'd love to see more of that, but at this point, I don't know.
I think that point that Dev brings up, though, is actually pretty good. Is reflecting on NAL last year, it got boring as batshit because you had the same teams versing each other, and in a Swiss format you could have that same issue. And I think a lot of people have been praising the fact that this group stage format has just absolutely exploded with our expectations on how fun Siege can be, because you're seeing so many interregional games and you're not seeing teams versing each other over and over and over, which has the potential to get repetitive. Like, don't get me wrong, you could develop some awesome storylines from that. You could definitely have some higher quality Siege, but I think from an entertainment perspective, having interregional competition to this sort of scale is an opportunity you don't get at any other event. So you may as well try and exploit it during SI, particularly in the group stage, if not many teams are going home as well on top of that.
In a group stage Swiss, you could never have the same teams playing each other twice, though. Again, I'm not sure how, like, APAC North, like, did it kind of strange, but if you look at, if you don't like the CS majors, for example, if you look at Allied Esports group stage, they did Swiss, and it wouldn't have been possible for any team to play each other twice. You do have to have a specific number of teams for Swiss to work. Swiss works with 16 teams. I don't think it would have worked with 20. So that's a big problem with Swiss. You'd have to do some janky shit to make that work. And that might result in some, like, a worse format. But if you have 16 teams, you don't have to worry about any, like, tie breaks, and you don't have to worry about any teams playing each other twice.
Obligatory Allied minor seems like it was so freaking long ago. Comment.
I know. Allied Esports, but that's the only example of Swiss that we have in Siege, so I think it's a better example than CS majors.
Yeah, for real. All right, chat. One more good question in here, and then we'll sign off, and people can actually get some adequate sleep for once. Give us one more good one. Mini leagues are just too complicated. I mean, the mini leagues were kind of necessary in a format like this for best of ones, but I do agree that to the layman, it was definitely overly complex for sure.
I know we're kind of just going back to Dev's questions. Dev, stop asking making insightful comments. But he said he prefers head to head over round differential for tiebreakers. I also agree with that.
Yeah.
The problem I have with round differentials as tiebreaker is, like, if I play Oregon and I start on maybe I start attack, and you're playing on, I don't know, like Villa or like Consulate, you might be just as bad as me. But I'm starting to attack. I've got no chances on Oregon, so I'm going to get a 7-0'd, and you're going to get 7-3, 7-2'd. So I don't think round count's a perfect way to differentiate skill of teams.
All right, here's the question. I think we all get one answer to this. Best game to rewatch the group phase. There's a lot of good ones, dude.
Who wants to go first?
Let me pull the pages up real quick so I remember what all we had.
I liked, I think the most fun game that we had in the group stage might have been, I think Maker's Giants. If you didn't see it, was very fun. Sorry.
Aw.
I think that game was a fucking blast.
Yeah, that is probably the most enjoyable game of Siege I've ever casted, so obviously I'm going to be a little bit biased in this conversation because, being a part of it was a lot of fun. But again, it was one of those matches where it wasn't the two best teams, it wasn't the two greatest storylines, it wasn't two teams that had any real chance of winning SI, but they were pouring everything they had into this matchup. It was just absolutely hectic. We had hysterics popping off. We had makers pulling out fucking visa office extensions for I think it was a basement defense or some weird shit. It was just absolutely ridiculous. Some of the craziest stuff I've ever seen in a game of Siege. That was a match that needed unlimited OT. Let me get that straight. That 100%. If that had unlimited OT, that could have been one for the ages. But yeah, if you want to go back and watch some exciting Siege, Maker's Giants, 100% have to watch that one.
Yeah.
Solely from a strategical standpoint, I'll actually go back to a day one game, but I did go back and rewatch because I was super intrigued by it, and that was the Empire BDS game that went 8-7 on Club. I don't know how these guys made Club look that watchable and that exciting again, because I think overall Club has kind of seemed stale recently, but these dudes, they put on a masterclass every single round, and I think there's a lot that you can learn from different, executes different takes. The fact that these two guys literally knew coming in that this kind of competition was going to be this close, and this was the game that the sole game BDS lost through the whole tournament and was one of Joystick's comebacks, because oh boy, this is where he started laying on 14 to 15 kills per game for a couple of games straight. So So good as far as I'm concerned. All right, I guess we're done.
All right.
I'm kind of stuttering for words and trying to find a way to just get all my thoughts out eloquently because I literally have run out of words in the English language that I can say over the course of the past week. But in terms of us, I think we're good to wrap everything up. Guzz, anything you wanna say? Anything you wanna plug real quick? Floor is yours for a hot second.
I was just going to say, I'm feeling the exact same as you are. After 6 days of casting, I am saying the same fucking words over and over. He's been putting my head in. Like, I've got a list written down of all the words that I need to stop saying, which is getting really, really annoying. But yeah, thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun. If you want to follow me on Twitter, @GuzzCast, you can make fun of my shit takes and all that fun jazz. Yeah, I'll see everyone in chat for the playoffs, which we've slated as being really, really exciting. So I have no doubt our predictions will be completely wrong, which should be a lot of fun.
Probably.
And yeah, keen to see it play out, of course.
Jesse, how about you? What do we got? You still planning on doing those companion streams for during the playoffs too? Is that happening?
Why, Jacob? I'm so glad you asked, because on twitch.tv/JessieJChick, we're going to be going over the playoffs, of course, with live analysis with top-level guests from all across the North American League and potentially elsewhere. The guests are to be announced at the moment, but make sure you follow @JessieJChick to come find out what those guests are on Twitter. I've got the first one locked down. It's spicy. It's going to be a good one. After that, we'll have to wait and find out.
All right, 2 straight days of break, and then we will also be back, still continuing to do the post show as we progress through the playoffs. And hopefully the shows themselves will end up being a little bit shorter and shorter because we will have less games to cover overall. But we got a graphics package that we have to retool for best of threes, and then we have plenty more Siege in the playoffs coming for the 6th Invitational 2021. Thank you for tuning in to the post show. For Guzz, Jesse, Jabrock, and myself, thank you very much. We'll see you on Wednesday. Have a good one.